In this video, we're going to give some tips on how to start an Airbnb business in the year 2025. Whether you're looking to purchase your first vacation rental and offset some of the expenses with Airbnb revenue, or you're a scrappy investor looking to maximize ROI, this video will be for you. There's multiple aspects to Airbnb applicable to basically anywhere in the United States. I got my start in the vacation rental management business in 2014 for a large vacation rental company stationed in the Destin, Florida area. I started with 40 units and ended with 200. 200's a lot for a single manager. Fast forward to today, I currently co-own What's Up Beach Vacation Rentals. It's a small boutique rental manager in the Destin, Florida area. We have 32 units on our management program. Me and Donna own two Airbnbs that we personally own. We are super hosts on Airbnb. We are premier hosts on VRBO. And me personally, I'm also a licensed real estate agent that's helped dozens of clients source their very first Airbnb here on the Emerald Coast. Now, I just wanted to start and break down some terminology. What is the definition of a vacation rental, short-term rental? A short-term rental, STR abbreviated, is a legally permitted dwelling that is rented out for a short period of time, usually less than 30 days and definitely less than 6 months. The rental can be a whole home, a room, or a group of rooms. Highlight that it's very flexible in its application. Now, booking channel. A booking channel for short-term rentals refers to an online platform or website where property owners can list their rental properties, fairly obvious. Popular examples like Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, etc. You get the gist there. So why I created this set of definitions is because a lot of people think Airbnb is the whole industry. That's not true. Even though they put a lot of money in marketing themselves and essentially Kleenex themselves, that their name is synonymous with the whole industry. That's not entirely true. So the vacation rental, short-term rental industry has been around a long time, even predating Airbnb. Airbnb is just the most modern, more elegant booking channel platforms, and it's very important to a lot of small managers' business like myself. And it's going to be the primary focus of today's video, but I just wanted to put out there that the vacation rental industry and Airbnb is a booking channel, although important, is a part of that industry. In our next section, we want to talk about, is it even a good time to purchase a vacation rental in the year 2025? And that's going to be a loaded question, and let's get into some details. The real estate industry in general has received a lot of bad press lately. As you know, interest rates are higher, affordability is crunched. A lot of people can't even afford their own primary residence. So Airbnb is not immune to this as well. So let's take a look back in time and figure out how we got to this place. So post-COVID, the year 2021, 2022 timeframe, cost of money was very cheap and there was a lot of money going around. There's a lot of speculation in rural markets that were not fully fleshed out in terms of Airbnb. We saw demand in these locations because a lot of bigger cities were shut down due to COVID and people wanted to escape to more rural private locations during that time. So naturally, a lot of money flowed into smaller towns and places that typically didn't have many Airbnbs. As time moved on and COVID restrictions eased up and things started to open back up and the cost of money got higher, these rural, more speculative markets dried up. So a lot of people had Airbnbs that were unsuccessful in these locations. Additionally, during the time where things were shut down during COVID, many people invested in markets like the Florida Panhandle, and things got really competitive with the influx of many new listings. So a lot of new competition, and that's a point of consideration. Every market's going to be a little different, and there's going to be local idiosyncrasies within each. Just for some context, I know an investor in Buffalo. They are grappling with a short-term rental ban in all of Erie County at this point in time. I know an investor in Orange County, California, that was wrestling with that same thing. In my local market, Panama City Beach, Florida Panhandle, we've had structural regulations and also an insurance crunch on large condo master policies that created an additional affordability crunch on top of high interest rates. So we're in a pretty hard buyer's market. Okay, we got out with the challenges. What about the pros of owning a vacation rental or purchasing a vacation rental in the year 2025? I mentioned flexibility of short-term rentals. And one most important flexible component of owning an Airbnb is the higher prices, higher rent that you can command. It opens the door to properties that you normally wouldn't be able to afford through a typical long-term rental schedule. The whole Airbnb arbitrage business that's kind of a part of this, if you kind of have been doing research, there are a lot of videos on that subject. That wouldn't exist if the rental profiles weren't higher than long-term rentals. So that's a truth of Airbnbs, that you could command more rent, higher rent, and in turn can cover more cost, which opens the door to owning more unique, perhaps luxury properties that you normally wouldn't think about with a long-term rental type of schedule. Now, that's going to vary market to market. Demand's going to be seasonal depending on where it is, but that's overlying truth to the industry. Now, additionally, you're not dealing with a long-term tenant. You're dealing with short-term rental guests, not a primary user. There are some pretty heavy laws involved with long-term rentals and leases and the eviction process. They don't apply to the short-term rental industry. Now, in Florida, at least, I know that to be true. We've have unfortunately had to evict some guests, and it was a pretty seamless process. It may vary a little bit depending on your location, but a little bit easier to operate in. So specifically, is it a good time? It's going to depend on the individual investor. We know that pretty much the majority of markets in this country are less affordable than they were due to higher interest rates. But in turn, we know that demand has slowed down considerably. And anecdotally, in my local market, we have about 9 months of supply on the market. It's a hard buyer's market. Year over year, listings are sitting longer, and there's actually downward pressure. Locally, our list prices have decreased by about 3%. So there's less competition in the market. There's a lot more inventory to choose from. The power is in the hands of the buyer on the purchase side. So when I say it depends on the buyer, buyers that have more cash to put down or buy the property outright avoid the whole expense component of the cost of debt or the interest rates on the mortgages. So those people are immediately going to be in a more advantageous position than the investor that's having to leverage. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a leveraging investor, but just know that to avoid extra expenses, the people that have cash saved to put a bigger dent in the mortgage are in a better position. Additionally, several of the high performing markets are more competitive now because we saw many people invest in Airbnbs post COVID when money was cheap. With that said, people that are more financially insulated, have more cash on hand, they have the ability to go after unupdated properties, or maybe properties that are at a lower price point in the market for the underlying product. Like in terms of condos, think about that completely unupdated unit in a very thriving resort with many pools, water slides, shopping on site, things like that. They have the capability to go for the ugliest investment in the building, improve it to their standard, use the design elements to really create a strong Airbnb where the person that's financing and a little bit more strapped for cash is going to be limited and looking to pay premiums on turnkey. Cash is king, and the person with more of it has the ability to uncover more value and develop value more so in that acquisition process than somebody that's over leveraged and has limited resources. So where do you start in the purchase process? So my advice is to start with a location that you're familiar with, whether it's in your backyard or a place that you have frequently visited. This will give you an advantage from a host perspective in being able to talk about the location intelligently. It's not completely outside of the realm to go to a location that you're unfamiliar with, but if you're looking to be a host yourself, I would recommend being knowledgeable about the location. Now, if you're just looking for the Airbnb to subsidize and maybe you want to tap into a co-host that's local, you can definitely do that too. There's plenty of room for delegation in the Airbnb business. I've essentially created a whole rental business on that component. The majority of people that I deal with don't want to have anything to do with the operation of running the Airbnb. They want to hand it over to me. And that's, it's a property management component. And it's the same thing with long-term rentals. So it's just going to depend on the situation and what you're looking to get out of the purchase, as far as, if it's more of an investment or if it's a usage slash investment and you're in a position where you can afford a property manager. So trying to find the best place on the map that is going to get you the most return for your vacation rental. It's hard to say. There's many great locations. I happen to live near Panama City Beach, which is one of the more affordable coastal Floridian markets, and there's plenty of inventory, and we're in a hard buyer's market right now. One tool that I would look at if you're considering multiple locations and you're trying to get into what type of revenue that you could generate in a location, there's many channels for this. AirDNA, I use Price Labs, but another tool that I really like is Airbnb Calc. It's relatively affordable, $29.99 a month, and you can put in any property and it will give you a fairly accurate rental projection on the gross revenue. So for context, I did put my own property that I actually knew what I produced in 2024 on it, and it came within $1,500 of what I actually produced. So I give it the thumbs up. I put a link in the description so that you can go ahead and download that. And I think it's one of the more accessible platforms that will give you an accurate estimation of rental production. Okay, now that you've homed in on the area and you've done some price analysis on Airbnb Calc, the next step is to reach out to a local real estate agent that is familiar with Airbnbs in the short-term rental business. They'll be able to shed some local insights on what areas to not try to pursue Airbnbs and maybe some areas that are more popular. They'll also have the line on property management if that's something you're interested in. More importantly, they're going to know local lenders that can provide you the right product that's specific to your situation or specific to the property. Okay, so let's talk about product mix real quick because it's really important when you're negotiating. So the first loan that's very common in the Airbnb market is the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac conventional second home loan. And this typically requires a minimum of 10% down, and the rates fall within the primary user market. Property, to my experience, is limited to single family townhomes. So I'm in a very heavily saturated market with condos. A lot of out of state buyers will try to use this product in the condo market, and a lot of the times it falls short because over the years, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have put restrictions and have gotten tighter on financing Airbnbs with their second home loan. I think some factors go into that beyond maybe the scope of this video, but making housing affordable and abundant within communities and not having investment or speculation on this front. Their definition of second home's a little bit different, and I think they want to limit their exposure to Airbnb investment on their properties. So in my local market with condos, they put in these restrictions of not having a specific saturation of Airbnbs in a community. There's a lot of criteria that goes into qualifying for this. For the most part, it's very tough to do if it's not a single family or a townhome. Okay, the portfolio loan is very common in my neck of the woods. There's a lot of condotels and different things like that. So a portfolio loan is what local lenders and rental markets will offer loans guaranteed by the bank on their terms. It will vary, but typically has higher rates than the aforementioned Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans. These loans are often adjustable rates, ARMs. Down payments range from 15 to 30%. So the bank guarantees the loan, and it's typically a little bit higher, but it can open the doors to a bigger variety of properties. These type of loans are very important in the market that I operate in. There's a lot of condotels, places with water slides and big associations, and the portfolio loan works well in these situations. Okay, the last loan worth discussing is the DSCR loan. This is the debt service coverage ratio loan. Doesn't rely on individuals' debt to income ratio, but relies on the asset's ability to cover debt through rental production. Now, this type of loan is good for investors that have multiple properties. Maybe they have several condos in a specific market. It doesn't take all the criteria of like the second home. Even on the portfolio loan, sometimes lenders don't want you to own another property within 60 square miles of that specific location. DSCR loan throws that all out the window. You get a special appraisal on the property that shows rental production, and then you're able to get in on the property without having to consider your debt to income ratio. They do typically want to see a decent credit score that is somewhere in the mid 650s. So I personally did a loan like that because I own a couple properties here locally. It worked out. This is more of an investor loan where you have multiple properties and maybe a higher debt to income ratio than some folks. All right, you laid the groundwork with the agent. Now you have an idea of what type of lending platform you're going to use. Now it's time to go tour some properties. And I would highly recommend visiting the location, get boots on the ground and check out the properties, work with your agent. That's the best way to purchase a property. I've definitely dealt with some remote transactions with investors, and also during COVID, some people didn't want to fly down here, but getting boots on the ground, seeing as many properties as possible within a 2 or 3 days is definitely ideal, especially when you're traveling to a market that you're not used to. So during that process, you want to create a short list of properties that are your favorites. I would definitely recommend having 3 to 4 properties in this short list. And within that short list, you're going to want to try to find actual rental history or at least get projections on it. Coupled with B&B Calc, you could very much get a good estimation on where you need to be. Now that we have an idea of rental production, get a good cost of ownership, and that's going to be things like HOA dues, utilities, taxes. So you're going to subtract that from your rental, and that through your lender, you're going to have what the cost of the debt is. So your net number after the costs are taken away, you remove your mortgage component from what's left, and you can see kind of where you stand. Is it going to lose a little bit each year, or are you going to make a little bit money each year? And you can tailor your offer to that accordingly. So that's really the homework, and having that lender and agent to help guide you and to acquire that information, that supplemental income information, along with what you have being able to scrape Airbnb through B&B Calc, you'd be in a good position to make some smart offers on properties. Now, for you scrappy investors out there, I know there are ways to go about this differently than conventional lending. There's seller financing. There's subject to, which is tricky, that I don't really have much experience with. There's rental arbitrage, where you can work that out somehow. But I particularly like helping people out in terms of the traditional co-host or property management method, where people, they don't really want to deal with all the guest complaints and they're busy in their own life. So if you're just to kind of give you an idea for the different business models associated with it, if you are a prosperous host and become super host with your own listing, even from afar, eventually maybe you can help other people manage their properties, because there are many people that don't want to be exposed to the stress or just the extra calls. They might be very busy professionals. They love the area, but they just want to, own the property and visit it occasionally and enjoy that appreciation, because that's where you make all your money in real estate. Okay, so you found a smoking deal on the property that you want to list as your Airbnb. What are the steps to creating a successful listing? Well, in that purchase process, you really need to focus on what you're going to do with the condition. Now, if you don't have the bandwidth to bring up the property to a contemporary feel, and contemporary is going to vary from market to market, whether it's rural, coastal, or in a metropolitan area, that's going to vary, and definitely for a video for another time and place. But it's very important that your Airbnb is in good condition. I highly recommend that people either update or they buy a property that's turnkey, that's already been updated. I definitely understand the challenges of trying to renovate a property from afar, but the conditions of the property be critical to your success. In terms of design within Airbnb, maximalist and even sometimes whimsical can be completely acceptable. When people are flipping or trying to sell a property, they typically want to depersonalize the property and just make it almost a monochrome gray. You don't have to do that with an Airbnb. The more personality, the better. The more it can take on an experiential time for the guests, the better. It makes the experience more memorable. So feel free to go crazy with your design to the point where it stands out in a local market. Contemporary, modern, update, and quality and personality all come together to create a fun experience. Okay, now it's time to build the listing. You need pro photography. And every market's going to be a little bit different, but a lot of Airbnb properties are in unique locations that have some kind of view. In my market, we have water views. We have large slider windows that look out to the water view, and a lot of light is coming from that one source into a relatively dark interior that can really throw off the photos, and you're not going to see any water. You're going to have just this large blaring light through the window and not see anything out of it. We have to have professional HDR photos to be able to showcase the water views. And we are typically in large resorts with a lot of pools and a lot of activities nearby. We need those drone photographs to be able to highlight all of the things to do nearby. And that really helps our listings pop. And in terms of the written copy, just having clean, concise descriptions of exactly what to expect in terms of the space, in terms of the process, the check-in time, the checkout time, the house rules, all of those items are well defined within the copy of the listing. That way, there is no misunderstandings as you kind of go, and the communication with the guest can be seamless. Housekeeping is a critical component to hosting a successful listing. Whether you're going to do the cleans yourself or hire a third party to do the housekeeping, it's very important that quality and accountability are in place. We personally use a platform called Turno that allows our housekeepers to upload photos after they're done cleaning. That way, if we get a complaint from a guest, we're able to have some point of reference for that housekeeper and be able to determine if it was maybe a misunderstanding or if it was actually our cleaner's fault. We're able to provide clarity and good communication with our guests and our housekeeping and kind of keep that in line, because that can become a point of contention and a point of pain. All right, lastly, how do you price your property to be competitive in the local market? Well, right within Airbnb's platform, they are going to have a recommended price. Many hosts feel that the prices recommended are a bit lower, that encourage people to book directly on Airbnb's platform. Newsflash, Airbnb is not the only platform out there, but they want to remain competitive and have the lowest price listing. And they only make money when people are booking on their platform. Many people don't subscribe to the pricing that's recommended on Airbnb's platform. I personally utilize Price Labs, which is a pricing tool that looks at Airbnb data and will give you a good recommended price. They're third party, not just Airbnb. So I take their recommendations a little more seriously, and that's what I use, because I am responsible for not just my own properties, but also the owners that have given me the responsibility to manage their properties. So it's very important that I get the pricing right, maximize revenue. So Airbnb is a specialized product. It's not going to be for every type of real estate investor. At the end of the day, in my opinion, and from working with dozens of would-be hosts or investors in Airbnbs, I find that this type of rental platform best serves people that are looking to travel and to get to know a specific market a little better. Whether they're doing some kind of retirement reconnaissance or want to have options in retirement with various beautiful locations to visit, Airbnb can be a fantastic tool for that. And you can own some really beautiful property that you normally wouldn't have access to on a long-term rental schedule because of the rent. And during season, you can get a lot of money to help cover the costs. And then in the off season, you could come visit the property and enjoy the lay of the land when there isn't many people in town. I know that's the case for several owners that I represent when it comes to the communication, the presentation, and the overall experience. The housekeeping needs to be dialed in. All the maintenance components needs to be kept up with. You need to maintain competitiveness. You need to be priced right. You need to take care of your guests when the need arises. If you're able to deliver a quality product each time, the positive reviews will begin to pile up. You will get superhost status and you will score high on Airbnb's algorithm. This is Eric Leitten with Emerald Coast Abode. I'm a local real estate agent on the Emerald Coast, servicing from Destin to Panama City Beach, Florida. I am a co-owner of What's Up Beach Vacation Rentals. So I operate as an open door. I really enjoy talking to investors off of this channel. If you're interested in maybe getting a little more information on maybe purchasing your first Airbnb, or you just have any questions, my contact information is in the description below. Shoot me an email. Let's set up a time to chat and figure out what the next steps are for you. I'm so excited for you, because if you're watching this video and you reach out to me, I know that you're taking some positive steps to really owning that dream property that you could Airbnb in and enjoy. Have a blessed day. Again, this is Eric Leitten, Emerald Coast Abode, signing off.